Hello everyone, good afternoon. AMP Tech here, and today we're going to talk about changing the oil on a transmission, transfer case, and the differentials on a W163 body style Mercedes. This one happens to be a 2004 ML-500. Before we jump on doing this task, I strongly recommend to consult the manuals that came with this car. Your car or the Mercedes ML should have came with something like this, and in it you're going to find a bunch of books such as the operator's manual and the factory approved service products for this particular car. Now, this particular car, for the transmission, transfer case, and the differentials, calls for 3 different oils. And if you go in here, you'll see at page 5, it calls for approved Dextron 3 automatic transmission fluid, but there is a note 1. It says, please see your Mercedes-Benz Center regarding application. Do not use in 722.6 transmission. Well, it just so happened that the ML-500 2004 ML-500 W163 does have a 722.666 transmission. Therefore, these oils actually do not apply. So if you go on page back here though, and we go to, here it is, transmission fluid, and you go under the 722.6 transmission for the M-Class 163, it calls for this type of transmission fluid. This is the part number for it. Now, if you punch in this transmission fluid online, a couple of people that provide this kind of transmission fluid are available. I personally got the transmission fluid from Blau Parts, and they provided an oil that is a, here it is right here, and if you read the label right here, it is a 236.10 oil. Now, Mercedes does recommend using a 236.10 oil if you're not flushing the oil system and you're still using the old oil that is in the torque converter. However, if you are going to flush the transmission and the torque converter and lines that go into the cooling system that run through the radiator, then Mercedes recommends an M9 series oil, or better yet, a 236.14 oil. Well, because I didn't drain the torque converter on a car, this car does not come with the drain plugs for the torque converter. You could do that by removing those 2 access plates made of rubber right at the housing of the torque converter, and you can turn the crank of the engine with a 27mm socket and a breaker bar, and with a long mirror you can see that a drain plug will not be found on this particular car. But anyway, also, if you look for the transfer case, calls for on the M-Class 163 this type of oil, and it brings you back to page 5, and these are the approved transmission Dextron 3 type oils. Now, because this is a 2004 car, chances are these particular Dextron 3 automatic transmission fluid are no longer available for the transfer case. But if you do on I use the Parts Geek for the some of the components and for the oil change in this car, such as the dipstick. Here's the dipstick, which does not come with the car, by the way. You'll have to buy it separately, and you will not be able to stick it all the way into the port right here in which you fill the oil at and check the oil at. You just bottom out the stick, which you do when the engine is running and the transmission is running. That's when you check the transmission oil on this particular car, and you'll have 2 ranges, a cold temperature range and a hot temperature range, which you will see on a dipstick right here. You'll notice that it says, I don't know if you can read it, let me just put it in the light. a 25 °C range. I don't know if you can see it. And a 80 °C temperature range. So usually what you'll want to do is fill up the amount of oil that you drained. It's a good rule of thumb to fill up the transmission with the amount of oil that you drain, so long as the transmission does not leak any oil. In that case, that will give you a false amount of oil, and actually will be less than what you're supposed to put in. So what's always wise to do, drain the oil. In this case, I drained 5 quarts, or just shy of 5 liters. But what I did, I put in 4 liters, and then I started it up and ran through the gears, and didn't get crazy, but just, you know, let it run a little bit so that the oil travels through. Now, I haven't finished to top it off yet for the sake of making this video for you guys. And by the way, these are the oils that I use. This is the oil that I used for the transmission. Again, the 236.10 M6 series of Ravenol, supplied by Blau Parts. Which, by the way, I'm not sponsored by these folks, but just the information that I'm sharing with you for the sake of information. You know, that's what they say, you help your fellow man out. This is the transmission oil that I use for the transfer case. It does call for an automatic transmission fluid, not a gear oil. And this is the gear oil for the 2 differentials. It is a hypoid gear oil in a manual, or the manual that I just showed you, calls for an 85W90, which you will find, where is it? Brakes, compressor, differential. Here it is, differential front and rear axles. For an M-Class W163, it calls for a hypoid gear oil, 85W90. So yeah, this is where you get this information, and then you could just transfer this information into your Google searches or your parts provider searches, and they'll give you your best possible oils that are current with the times. Because mind you, this car is a 2004, and these manuals are from back then. What I don't recommend you do, you just go to your local auto parts, such as and ask the guy at the back of the counter and say, well, listen, I got to change the oil on my Mercedes ML-500. And they said, oh yeah, well, just use this oil. This is a universal oil that you can use for all transmission. Yeah, don't do that. You just don't do that. If you want to preserve the life of your car and of your transmission, do not put a transmission oil that is not recommended by the manufacturer. And don't put a transmission oil that is just a universal oil. It will be much like putting a ferrous type brake pad on a carbon ceramic composite rotor. You just don't do that. So don't do that. Just do your, do your diligence, do your legwork, and find out what takes what. Now let's climb under the car so that we have an idea where everything is. Oh, another detail. The W163 ML-500 or 2004, for the 2 differentials, you're going to need about 3 liters, or just under 3 liters for the gear oil, hypoid gear oil. The transfer case takes just under the 2 liters, and I managed to drain 5 quarts, or just under 5 liters for the transmission. So far, I've only put 4 in, and I'm running it. Well, I already ran it already, and all I was doing is a leak check. Well, let's find out where these items are. Now, mind you, I've already executed much of the work. What I'm going to show you, though, is where the plugs are, because, I mean, you can find out these things from the other. Okay, here is your filler plug, and here is your drain plug for the rear differential. Mind you, it is a 10 millimeter, and you're going to want to crack open the filler plug first, lest you find out too late that the filler plug is seized and you can't fill it after you drained it already. So break open filler first, and then break open the drain, empty out the oil, inspect the O-rings, inspect for any metal particles inside of the drain pan, and this is the rear differentials. Now for the transfer case, It is a 3/8 drive. There's two plugs. Sorry, forgive. Here they are right here. You have your fill plug and you have your drain plug. It takes about, like I said, just under 2 liters. It's a 3/8 drive plug. I put a little bit of anti-seize, Loctite when these plugs went back in. I used the blue colored one. I can't recall now the number of them. And, you know, good and tight. I don't have a torque spec for this. And while I was at it, I also changed the transmission mount. It's easy work. It's cheap to replace. So just do it if you're, you know, why not? The front differential, there it is right here. I already removed that shroud, the plastic shroud. Here's your filler, and here is your drain for your front differentials. And lastly, transmission. Now the transmission, when you replace the transmission oil on these cars, Blau parts will provide you with not only the oil but the gasket. A drain plug will provide you with a seal, but will not provide you with the. This is a connector that they have a propensity to leak, and if you look, it is recommended to replace these every time you replace the oil. And it has these 2 O-rings, so when you pull this out, make sure the 2 O-rings also came out. It is keyed, so it could only go in one way. Nevertheless, by God, take your time. Use a mirror, use a flashlight, or use a mirror and a headlight, unless you have 3 arms and 3 hands where you can, one hand you hold the flashlight, one hand hold the connector, one hand hold the mirror, and here it is under here. There you go. There is going to be a shroud or shield that covers this particular connector here, so it doesn't get damaged by FOD or foreign object debris. And here's your oil pan. It has 6 plugs, 6 bolts all the way around, and these get torqued to 8 Newton meters, which I believe comes up to about 71 inch-pounds. And here's your drain plug. Now, mind you, before you drain this pan, I recommend that you put a heat gun to it or a blowtorch. Well, in this case, I used a MAP torch just to break the galvanic corrosion. It's semi-seized. But anyway, going back to the plug here, the way this plug comes off is you, forgive the light, see this tab here, all you do is you pull on it, and what it does, through a rotating motion, it extracts the plug. You move the plug out of the way. There's a 7mm screw in there, and I don't have the torque for that either. You unscrew that, and then you gently and with determination, you pull that connector out. Again, check for make sure that the seating area of the O-rings are clean. You check for the O-rings, make sure they came out. And that's pretty much it. And your drain plug is 20 Newton meters, which I believe is 177 inch-pounds of torque. And that's pretty much it. You drop everything. There is an oil filter in there. Now, there's other videos you could go look on YouTube for what's where and what's what. And these are the 2 access ports that I was telling you about for the torque converter. But you will not find a drain plug in there for later models W163s. So that's pretty much it, folks. These are the areas, and this is what it's required for the replacement of the oil, the transfer case, and the 2 differentials. No, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start it up again, make sure everything is copacetic with the transmission oil level. And yeah, here's your new lock tab for the filler port. This is what comes off of it. So you break the tab, you push in the remaining red part of the tab, you pull this out. Always inspect the O-ring, make sure that it's connected to the filling port plugs, and that's it, folks. This is pretty much all that it takes to change the transmission, transfer case, and differentials in a W163 ML-500, in this case in 04. Now, mind you, you guys, it is easy work, but it's delicate work. So take your time and yeah, do it right. And be careful of the quality of the type of products that's used. I mentioned earlier, again, high port gear oil, 8590 for the differentials. This is the transmission fluid that I use for the transfer case. And this is the oil that I used for the transmission. All right, guys, hopefully this video was of help to you. Hopefully it was of help. And if it was, you know, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you will. It would help me and create more videos to help you guys out. Other than that, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you the next time. Bye.